This sanctuary was pitched by the hands of men. But there's another sanctuary in this sanctuary that we need to enter in on Sunday morning. Paul said so many times, he was teaching, he said we come in the sanctuary on Sunday and we leave out the same way we came in. And what Paul is saying, the only thing we're doing is we're entering in these doors. And we keeping the orders that have already been set up in the Old Testament. We come in and we read the scripture, Paul said, and we wait for the minister to give the reading of today. But Paul said, don't you know that's not all that it is to worship service? Paul said, we come in one way and we leave out the same way. And it bothered Paul that he seen people coming to worship service Sunday after Sunday. And Paul said, I see them coming and I see them sitting. But I never get a chance to see everybody enter into the sanctuary. In other words, what I'm trying to say this morning, this ain't it, y'all. A lot of us is tarrying to get to the new sanctuary. A lot of us is waiting to get to the new sanctuary. But Paul said, if you don't enter in this sanctuary, it's going to be the same sanctuary over there. Paul said we got a sanctuary with shewbread in it, with golden candlesticks. We got a sanctuary that has the table of the covenant in it. But he said that the priests come in and what we know how they used to be. When they come in into the sanctuary, the priest kept his priestly duties. He would come in and folk would be quiet, so the priest can read the Ark of the Covenant. Paul said, now this is the old way that we used to worship God. That the priest would just come in and read the Ark of the Covenant, and the folk would go back out the same way. Paul said here, the old way, in chapter 9, verse 7. He said in verse 8, verse 9, verse 7, but unto the Sabbath went the high priest alone, once every year, not without blood, which he offered for himself and for the errors of the people. Paul said, now the old way, the priest would come in one time a year, and he would go into the holiness of holiness. In other words, that word sanctuary, it means into the presence of God, into the holiest of holiness. And what I'm trying to get you to see this morning, sometimes we just come into the old sanctuary. I believe Paul said here in verse 9 and 1, he said there's a worldly sanctuary, but then there's a holy of holiness sanctuary. And a lot of times we just enter into the worldly sanctuary. You have to back up for a minute. Kept on looking at this. Paul, what are you really saying?